Welcome to Gemara Academy. In this class, we will learn the Gemara Masechta Shabbos on Daf Vav Amud Beis and Daf Zayin Amud Aleph. Let's begin by looking at the general outline of this Gemara. Previously, we presented a brisa regarding the four Rishayos of Shabbos. In a previous Gemara, we presented an extensive brisa that told us examples of the four Rishayos of Shabbos and the dinim of those Rishayos. In the previous piece of Gemara, we asked questions in the beginning of the brisa that spoke about a Rosh Hashanah and a Rosh Hashanah. In this piece of Gemara, we're going to move on to the next part of the brisa. The Gemara will ask two questions on the part of the brisa that discusses a karmelis. And the two questions are, number one, we're going to have a contradiction to saying that a bika is a karmelis. The brisa says aval yam, but an ocean, ubika in an area of fields, vaistevanis in the bench area in front of stores, veha karmelis and a karmelis. Those four cases are not like a Rosh Hashanah or Rosh Hashanah, rather they are a third Rosh, they are a karmelis. The Gemara is going to present a contradiction to this from a Mishnah. There's a Mishnah that says that a bika in an area of fields is a Rosh Hashanah. And number two, we're going to ask, why does the brisa say veha karmelis? All the cases are a karmelis. What does it mean when it says aval yam, bika, veistevanis, veha karmelis, and a karmelis? So let's see the Gemara now in the flowchart form. So this whole Gemara is on the brisa that we learned previously about the four Rishayos of Shabbos. And the Gemara begins by quoting from the brisa, and it's going to lead into a question. Amar Mar, the master of the brisa said, but a sea, an area of fields, that's the key, the bench area in front of stores, and a karmelis aren't like a Rosh Hashanah or Rosh Hashanah. And the Gemara asks, and an area of fields isn't like a Rosh Hashanah or a Rosh Hashanah? Is that true? But we learned in a Mishnah, it says as follows, regarding an area of fields. In the summer months, the din is, it's a Rosh Hashanah for Shabbos. And like we'll see in a moment, also in the rainy season, it's a Rosh Hashanah for Shabbos, because the Rishayos of Shabbos are not influenced by the seasons. The reason seasons are mentioned here, we'll see, is for a different matter. But it says over there in the summer, it's a Rosh Hashanah for Shabbos. And it's a Rosh Hashanah for Tumah. The din is by Tumah, if a person is in an area and he's not sure if he became Tumah or not. The din is if he's the only one there, that's considered a Rosh Hashanah for Tumah. And the din is, Safik Tumah Rosh Hashanah is Tumah. However, if he's not the only one there, if there's anybody else there, it's considered Rosh Hashanah by Tumah. And the din is Safik Rosh Hashanah by Tumah is Tahir. He'll be Tahir. So the din is in the summer, an area of fields is considered a Rosh Hashanah for Tumah. The reason is because since it's the summer months, nothing is growing in the fields, people would go through the fields as a shortcut. So if a person's in an area of fields in the summer, and he's not sure if he became tummy or not, we say you're now in an area of a Rosh Hashanah, you're not alone over there, and therefore he's tar because it's considered Safik Tumah b'Rosh Hashanah. The Mishnah continues and says, in the rainy season, it's a Rosh Hashanah for both. It's a Rosh Hashanah for Shabbos, because the Rishayos of Shabbos are not influenced by the seasons. And the reason why it's a Rosh Hashanah for Tumah is because since it's the rainy seasons, things are growing in the fields, so people would not use the fields as a shortcut. They don't want to cause damage or harm to the crops that were growing. People would not use the fields as a shortcut. So if a person's in a field, we say he's there alone. And if he's unsure if he became tummy or not, that's considered Safik Tumah b'Rosh Hashanah, and he's tummy. But the reason we bring this Mishnah is because it says clearly that an area of fields is a Rosh Hashanah. So we have a contradiction to our brisa that says that an area of fields is a karmelis. And we have two answers. The first answer is by Ula. Ula says it's really a karmelis. Everybody agrees that an area of fields is a karmelis, and the easy way of understanding that logically, not resolving the contradiction, is that an area of fields does not have the requirements of a Rosh Hashanah. It doesn't have walls that are 10 tefachim high. So Ula says everybody agrees that an area of fields is a karmelis. And we complete this answer by addressing a question. The Mishnah also agrees it's a karmelis. And why does he call it a Rosh Hashanah? The reason is because it's not a Rosh Hashanah. In other words, Ula says that the brisa says that an area of fields is a karmelis, and the Mishnah says that an area of fields is a karmelis. And that's the reason why the brisa says it's a karmelis, why it calls it a karmelis, because it is a karmelis. The Mishnah also agrees that it's a karmelis. The reason why the Mishnah calls it a Rosh Hashanah is not because it's telling us that it's a Rosh Hashanah, rather it's telling us that it's never a Rosh Hashanah. And the point is, it's contrasting Shabbos to Tumah. That unlike by Tumah, that sometimes an area of fields is a Rosh Hashanah, sometimes it's a Rosh Hashanah, the Mishnah is telling us that by Shabbos it's never a Rosh Hashanah. And the way the Mishnah tells that to us is by saying it's a Rosh Hashanah, but it doesn't mean to say it's a Rosh Hashanah. The emphasis is that it's never a Rosh Hashanah. So there we have the first answer, the answer of Ula, that everybody agrees that an area of fields, a bika, is a karmelis, and the reason the Mishnah calls it a Rosh Hashanah is simply to point out that it's never a Rosh Hashanah. The Gemara now presents a second answer by Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi says it's a case where there are walls around it. Rav Ashi says that the brisa calls it a karmelis because the brisa is referring to a regular area of fields where there's no wall around it. That area of fields is a karmelis. The reason why the Mishnah calls it a Rosh Hashanah is because it's talking about an area of fields that's surrounded by a wall. And therefore it's a Rosh Hashanah because since it's surrounded by walls, it has the requirements and the qualities of Rosh Hashanah, so it's a Rosh Hashanah. So the answer that we have from Rav Ashi is that the brisa is referring to one type of area of fields, and the Mishnah is referring to a different type of an area, of fields, and therefore they give them different reshuyas. The Brisa is referring to an area of fields that it's a karmelis, calls it a karmelis, and the Mishnah is referring to an area of fields that's a reshus hayachid, and it calls it a reshus hayachid. Now, there's one question that needs to be answered now in the Mishnah. However, since there are openings in the fence, the people are able to walk through the field in the summer season. If it's surrounded by walls, then how can we say that in the summer season, the Mishnah says that this area of field that's surrounded by walls is a reshus harabim because many people are there? How are people using that area if it's surrounded by walls? So Rashi explains that since there are openings, although there are walls, there are also openings, and because there are openings, people are able and do use the field as a shortcut. But nevertheless, there's enough walls that it's a reshus hayachid for Shabbos. So there we have the answer of Rav Ashi that the Brisa is talking about an area of fields that's a karmelis, and therefore calls it a karmelis, and the Mishnah is talking about an area of fields that's a reshus hayachid, and therefore calls it a reshus hayachid. The Gemara now just brings down a completion or support, an idea that's behind what Rav Ashi said, and that's an arrow, and we'll just go through it briefly. This is like Ula Amar Rabbi Yechanan said, that an area that's greater than 2 Beisah, that's considered a karfif. A karfif is an area that's larger than 2 Beisah, that was walled in, so there's walls around it, just like the area of fields. It's very large because there are fields there, but not for residential use. So nobody's living there, there's no house there, like our case, it's for a field. One who throws into it from Reshus Harabim is chayev. If somebody throws an item from the Reshus Harabim into there is chayev. And explained over there, what's the reason he's chayev? Because it's walled in, it's just missing residence. It's a regular reshus hayachid because there's walls around it. So we see from Ula Amar Rabbi Yechanan that this area, no matter how large it is a reshus hayachid. The reason why we have this teaching, just to point out, is because the din actually is that a person can't carry more than 4 amos in this karfif. And the reason is because since it's so large, it resembles a reshus harabim, and therefore the Chazal made a zera, a decree that a person can't carry more than 4 amos. But essentially, it's really a reshus hayachid, and therefore if somebody carries from reshus harabim into it, he'll be chayiv. He just went against an isser min ha-Torah. One other point is that although it looks like a reshus harabim, if it was closed for residential use, it was used to enclose an area where there was a house, so that addresses the issue that it looks like a reshus harabim, and the din is that it doesn't look like a reshus harabim anymore, and a person is allowed to carry in it more than 4 amos. But at any rate, we're just bringing down a support that as long as it's surrounded by walls, it's irrelevant how large of an area it is, it's going to be considered a reshus hayachid, and that's why the Mishnah calls it a reshus hayachid, because it's referring to a case where there are walls around it, and it's a reshus hayachid. The Gemara now is going to continue on and discuss why it is that Ula takes his answer and Rav Ashi takes his answer. What's Ula's problem with Rav Ashi, and what's Rav Ashi's problem with Ula? So the Gemara begins by saying, it makes sense why Rav Ashi didn't say like Ula, and the reason is very simple, like the Gemara is going to actually mention in a moment. According to Ula, the Mishnah calls it a reshus hayachid, even though it holds that it's a karmelis. That's troubling. Why would it say it's a reshus hayachid if it's really a karmelis? So it makes sense why Rav Ashi didn't like Ula's answer. However, a question is, this leads into a question, that's why we're mentioning it, that would make sense to us why Rav Ashi doesn't like Ula, but why didn't Ula answer based on his own teaching? The teaching of Rav Ashi is based on, like we see in the arrow beneath Rav Ashi, Ula Amar Rabbi Yechanan. So why didn't Ula like that answer? Why didn't he simply say that the Mishnah is referring to a bika, an area of fields that's surrounded by a wall? He agrees that that area is a reshus hayachid. So why didn't he bring that answer? And the Gemara says, if it has walls, would it call it an area of fields? It would call it a karfif. Ula says that the problem with Rav Ashi's answer is that the Mishnah would not have called it a bika. It's not a bika. Once it has walls around it, it's called a karfif. So the reason why Ula doesn't like Rav Ashi is because he says that then the Mishnah would not call it a bika, would call it a karfif. And the Gemara now answers a question which already mentioned beforehand. So why does Rav Ashi choose his answer? According to his answer, the Mishnah calls a karfif with the name bika. That's a problem. So the Gemara says, and Rav Ashi will tell you, it says reshus hayachid, not karmelis. So each one of them has an issue with the wording, with the other one. So Ula's issue with Rav Ashi, he says that according to Rav Ashi, it shouldn't have said bika, it should have said karfif. And the problem that Rav Ashi has with Ula is he says that according to Ula, the Mishnah is calling it a reshus hayachid when it really holds that it's a karmelis. So each one has a wording in the Mishnah that doesn't fit fully. The Gemara now is going to move on to the next question on the Brisa, on this part of the Brisa. So we're going to quote once again from the Brisa and then ask for a question. Amar Mar, the Brisa mentions cases of karmelis, and it finishes off with saying, and a karmelis. And this leads into a question. The Gemara asks, are the others not a karmelis? What does it mean when it says, but a yam, an ocean, ubika, an area of fields, Vaistavanas in the bench area, Ver Karmelis and the Karmelis are not like a reshus hayachid and a reshus harabim. And then we go on to say how they are Karmelis. We give them the din of a Karmelis. Clearly they're all a Karmelis. So what does it mean when it says Ver Karmelis and a Karmelis? The Gemara gives the answer from Rav Dimi Amar Rabbi Yechanan that it's referring to a corner near Rosh Hashanah. When it says V'hakarmelis, it's just adding another case. It's a Keren Zavis Hasmuchal Rosh Hashanah, a corner near the Rosh Hashanah. There are two different explanations of what this case is. Rashi gives two explanations. One is that there are a number of houses, and one house is pulled in. So it's that area where it's pulled in, that there's no house over there. That's the Keren Zavis, the corner, Hasmuchal Rosh Hashanah, that's right near the Rosh Hashanah. And another way of looking at it is that there's a bit of a corner, it's jutting out, but in either case, it's an area right off the Rosh Hashanah. An explanation for why it's a karmelis, the Gemara gives is that even though people sometimes walk there, they walk there since it's right near the Rosh Hashanah. Since it's not comfortable, it's a karmelis. So since it's not comfortable use, it's not part of the Rosh Hashanah, it's a karmelis. So we'll just summarize the Gemara. What we had is one question. How could the Brisa say that a bika, an area of open fields, is a karmelis? We find that the Mishnah says it's a Rosh Hashanah. We give two answers. One is that the Mishnah says it's a Rosh Hashanah just to bring out that it's not a Rosh Hashanah, but it agrees that it's a karmelis. And the other answer is that the Mishnah is referring to an area of fields that's surrounded by a wall, and that's why it calls it a Rosh Hashanah, because if it's surrounded by walls, it's a Rosh Hashanah. And the second part of the Gemara is we asked, what does the Brisa mean when it says Veha karmelis? All the cases are karmelis, and we explained it's just referring to another case that a Keren Zav is a corner, Hasmuch Rosh Hashanah, that's right off the Rosh Hashanah. That case is also karmelis, and that's what's meant, that's what's indicated with the word Veha karmelis. It's just referring to that case.